All right, folks, we are back yet again. Welcome to the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast, where we discuss the best in alternative rock, past and present day. Today, I'm joined again by my regular co-host, Chris Logan.
Hello.
And on this episode, we thought we would dive into the recent 2020 list of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. It's a pretty strong ranking this year for stuff, so we thought we'd kind of go over the list of bands and list what our picks are, and just go along those lines. So I am looking at the roster right here.
Yep.
And
I am too.
There.
And first off, do you have qualifiers? Like, what is it for you that really pushes somebody to be, even this far, even nominated? Because I know that's usually, a line of contention. But, like for myself, I like to look at an artist's influence. And then on top of that, like to look at what their catalog is and what the overall strength of the catalog. And then after that, I guess you have to kind of put in some sort of like, were they popular?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard for me because I think I'm kind of just, I guess, more selfishly prone to just pick bands that I really like, that I think have done great work, but I don't always go with the legacy stuff. But this year's really hard because you've got people that have been long overdue, along with bands that are kind of new entries, but they're also, I think, strong contenders. So this is a particularly, I thought last year was particularly strong. I think this might be even stronger as far as...
See, I like last year's lineup more than this year's, but I mean, I do like a lot of what this year's lineup has. That there's no doubt.
I think you got to...
I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited about at least a couple of them that I think may be making their first appearance. Well, at least one of them is. I think.
Yeah, and
on as far as this nomination.
And I think they've got a nice mix of eras here too. They kind of cover all the bases.
Yeah.
So I think we can either do a couple ways. We can either go through them in alphabetical order, the way they're listed on the thing, or give our picks first, or however you want to tackle it.
I tell you what, let's go through the artists and then have our picks.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Makes for more tension.
That's right. We'll make it make it a nail biter. All right. Well, first off, we got we've got Pat Benatar, and Pat Benatar is an interesting choice because she really didn't have what I would say was a really lengthy career, just as far as her output was concerned.
Right.
I'm trying to think of how many albums she actually put out, but if you grew up in the 70s and early 80s like we did, and you listen to the radio, I mean, her influence was pretty undeniable. And she was also very groundbreaking. I mean, she was an early, chick in the front row making her own music. Yeah. So
girl power before the girl power.
Mm-hmm. And she also had kind of a cool partnership because it was with her. I don't think they're still married anymore, but it was her husband and her co-wrote all the material together. I believe his name was Chris Gerardo.
Neil, I thought.
Neil.
Hold on.
No, I think you're right. I think it's
Neil.
I think it's Neil Gerardo. And
okay.
And they, pumped out a bunch of hits. What was the name of the album with Promises in the Dark on it? I'm trying to think because I actually bought that vinyl.
Precious Time. It was Precious Time. I was going to say that was like, I thought that was the big record, but on I think that was the breakthrough record, I guess, is more of the way to put it for her, because it had Fire and Ice on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Promises in the Dark was on that. So,
and this is something, because we're in this era of these, like, boutique record stores, and getting vinyl at those places or ordering it online. But back when we were tykes, in addition to the music stores, you could actually buy vinyl at the grocery store.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I
to get it at Safeway.
Yeah, and I got Pat Benatar at Safeway grocery store in the vinyl section. So that's my memory of Pat Benatar. But she kind of made a weird transition, because you had that album, of course, the album before it with "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" and Heartbreaker and all that. But then she, in the '80s, she kind of got, late '80s, she got much more poppy with "Love Is a Battlefield" and stuff like that. But I don't object to her being on there. I mean, I think she's a solid contender. She certainly has a good legacy. Any notes you have on her you wanted to throw in?
Yeah, well, she's one of the artists that I'm really kind of trying to figure out how she ended up there. Who actually was the champion for her? I mean, because to me, it's really a real shot in the dark for her. Certainly there's a lot of hit power there, especially from "Hit Me with Your Best Shot," "We Belong," "Love Is Battlefield," but that's 40 plus years ago at least. So, I guess I don't have an issue with her being on there. I don't see her going any further than where she is right now. And I just, like, I also don't know where she falls on the spectrum of who did she influence, because she was part of a group of women that would go on, especially in those early '80s. They would be the ones to influence, but I just don't feel that she's been the influence. And I'm not knocking her output, because, like, I love the song "We Belong." I think that's that's probably my favorite song out of her catalog. But I just don't see her going any further than right here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, she's, we were discussing how she's not, had a long list of hits, but she certainly has, like, her select stuff. So she is an interesting inclusion on there.
It's an interesting choice. Interesting nomination.
Now, the next person on the list is an even more contentious entry for me, given our previous episode on bands you either love or hate. Dave Matthews Band. Dave Matthews Band is up for this nomination this year, and I have some problems with that.
Yeah.
All personal. I just don't like the band, so I don't see them as a great rock band, but I know that there are millions of people who do.
There's a bunch of, and he's got a lot of sales power behind him. My thing about the Dave Matthews Band is, like, I would raise my hand and go, well, is there a way that we can just nominate, like, a couple of them? Because there's great musicianship in that band. First and foremost for me is the drummer, Carter Buford or Beauford or something like that. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but the drummer is outstanding. Beyond that, maybe the bass player guy, but really, I have a difficulty understanding, once again, who championed for Dave Matthews Band to be here. But this won't be their year, I don't think, but eventually he's going to get in.
Have there been any other jam bands that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? But are the Grateful Dead in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Yeah,
Grateful Dead are, like, 40 of them. And I'm not really kidding. I think there's about 30 or 40 of them that have passed through the band that are actually part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, but do we want to call Allman Brothers Jam Band? I think they're in.
Maybe.
But I have a hard time with, they're not necessarily a jam band as much as like a good rock and blues band that just happened to go a little jammy. That's, my perception. So, yeah, this may be about as close as the rest of that entire subgenre we get.
Yeah, very interesting choice. But yeah, one I'm not excited about. So moving on.
Exactly. Next.
Now this I'm much more excited to talk about because the next band on the list is Depeche Mode.
I knew you would be.
Very, very excited because to me, Depeche Mode was one of the first electronic bands to have a real rock component to their sound. Martin Gore added some guitar riffs to it, and they always had the kind of a bluesy side to their music. So, given their popularity, their output, their influence, I think that Depeche Mode are definitely worthy contenders. And I know some people are like, oh, it's not rock and roll. They always say about a lot of these choices on here, but I think,
oh my gosh, yeah,
I think you can't deny what their output is. How they really changed a lot of things, how they, kicked a lot of doors down for that style of music. And made such a transition from the early days of the real, Vince Clarke era with the bright synth pop, very poppy, to Martin Gore's era where it became very dark and really changed the entire sound. So, So I think they've had a very interesting progression over the years and great songwriting, great vocals. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it. What are your thoughts about Depeche Mode? Be on the list.
Depeche Mode falls in that line of, yes, I want them in, not now. It mind you, it's just the wish list, but we all know that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does not go in any sort of pattern whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I expect them fully to get in. I honestly thought if they were going to get in, they were going to get in last year. Really, I thought they would have, well, especially with a big tour and everything that they had just announced, and then it just there were a lot of dominoes that were falling in their favor last year. And so I thought that they were going to get in last year, but they got passed on, and they're not going to get passed on very much longer if they keep up this trend of making the first cut into the nominee class. They're going to get in. I'm not ready for them to be in yet. I need for me to have somebody else in first before I start pushing their button.
Well, I think the Cure getting in last year was kind of like the bellwether for a lot of those bands from that era. Yeah. So I think the Cure getting in there makes their inclusion much more likely than before.
Yeah, their chance for this year looks pretty well imminent, if you ask me.
Yeah, so I think definitely a strong inclusion. Some people may disagree that they're a rock group, but I think they are totally a rock group, and I'm totally have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the Doobie Brothers, and I have to profess that I don't really know a lot of Doobie Brothers stuff. I'm not well versed in the Doobie Brothers behind minus, I guess, I know Michael McDonald was a singer for them, and so I guess they had like Heading to the Streets and stuff like that, or I guess I get confused with what's a Doobie Brothers song and what's a Michael McDonald solo song. They kind of all blur together for me. So I'm just not really. I don't have a strong opinion about the Doobie Brothers. So I'm gonna throw that one to you and see what
Yeah.
what you think about them.
Well, and by no means I'm not a huge Doobie Brothers fan. Now, I will say that at some point in the mid to early 2000s, I had this one guy that came into one of my stores, my record stores, and he was a fan of what he said pre McDonald Doobie Brothers, and I was
Oh,
like, wait a minute,
there's such a
and
thing.
I yeah, and I was like, what do you mean? Hasn't he always been with the band? He was like, no, no. There's like four albums that the Doobies did without Michael McDonald. Like Michael McDonald was slinging vocals for Steely Dan or something like that for a while, and they recruited him over. And so I was like, well, damn, I feel like I need to listen to those. He said, yeah, you'd actually like those. And by no means did it convert me to. I didn't run out and go get a T-shirt or anything like that, put a sticker on my car, but and I couldn't even tell you any of those albums that were without Michael McDonald, but they were good albums. It was like one of their other members, Tom Johnson or something like that, that was doing vocals at the time. And I think he's back doing them now since Michael McDonald's full on solo. But they did like four albums without him. The only one that I can remember was like Captain and Me, but that's it. And it was fine. It was fine. Michael McDonald for me didn't really add anything outside of you know white man soul to it. I guess their sound changed a little bit, but I mean, just because it probably went a little bit more mainstream of a sound, where those earlier records were a little bit more R&B, a lot more R&B based. But yeah, that I have a shallow understanding of Doobie Brothers. So who knows? I mean, they made it this far. I don't know what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, they're just kind of like one of those. I kind of like Pat Benatar
They
thing.
sold a lot of records.
Yeah.
They sold a lot of records. I know that.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
I kind of don't have much
we'll
opinion.
see. We'll see if they get votes.
Yeah, we'll see how strong the force is with the Doobie Brothers because
Yeah,
I'm kind of lukewarm on that. But I guess speaking of R&B, next up we have Whitney Houston, and
yeah,
I kind of feel like regardless of our pick, she's gonna get it. Um, just because one, she's not here anymore, and that always kind of I think gives it
right.
extra weight to a legacy thing. Two, I mean, she was one of the biggest icons of the '80s and '90s.
Yeah,
Um, not my style of what I was not into pop. I really had a very snobby thing back when we were in high school and college, where I had a real problem with artists that didn't write their own songs. Um,
yeah, yeah,
I just kind of felt that was kind of inferior to singer songwriters. I realized, what I've come to try to respect in later years is just the fact that some people are really blessed with great vocals, great pipes that kind of propelled them and gave them a presence. So in that respect, I respected and all of that, but I just never was a huge fan of Whitney Houston. That was just a little too poppy for my taste. But I can see why she was included, and I think she'll definitely get
yeah.
it. I think she'll definitely get in this year. I'd be surprised if she didn't.
And I'm with you on that because I mean, first, very popular, sold a lot of records, a lot of people think that she had the the vocal to really distinguish her from, and she did. I mean, between her and Madonna, I mean, it was Whitney or Madonna, all through the '80s. It seemed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just because pop sensibility, other people wrote the songs, but she had a strong promotion machine behind her that was really making sure that those records had a lot of airplay, so that people would eventually go, yeah, that's not so bad, and then go buy the record, of course. But there's some things that are in her favor. I'd be surprised if she didn't make it, honestly, because, like you said, that legacy of, well, she's dead, and they like to give a little bit of a, oh, we love you, Whitney.
Mm-hmm. A little posthumous
exactly
reward.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely don't have a strong.
I mean, but Whitney had the sales to back it up, and the popularity, and the tours that ever, when she did a tour, it was like a huge event. And so, yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's working in her favor.
And she also kind of had that tragic era too, obviously, where it's like, her career stalled because of personal problems, and she died because of those personal problems. So that era of tragedy is just that's kind of baked in the cake as far as like rock legends are concerned, for better or worse. So
there's certainly enough water under the bridge for people to remember that she died an addict in a tub at the Beverly Hills Hotel 2 days before the Grammys. So, I mean, that's really pretty sad, honestly. But
I think that factors into it too.
What a rock star way to go, huh?
Yeah. I mean, there is that.
Yeah.
There is that thing that I mean, I'm surprised that Joy Division hasn't been listed as a. You think about kind of a weird abrupt turn there, but I'm just thinking about notable rock star deaths and all that, and
right,
and that that's just one of those kind of unhealthy appeals of rock stardom is the tragic side of it too. So I think that factors into it.
The key difference there are record sales.
Yeah.
And that's really it. That's really it.
Now, next on the list is something that's we've got to go in the polar opposite direction now with Judas Priest, and this definitely falls into the long overdue category. I mean, I just saw Judas Priest last year, and
that's right.
Was absolutely, or this year actually, was absolutely blown away. I kind of been kicking myself the fact that I never saw them before, but that, I mean, just seeing them still so good, and Rob Halford's so powerful. Really, those guys have put in the hours, they put in the work, they've got the legacy. They, did it in their own terms. They are just a great rock band. So the fact that they're long overdue to getting in, but I think that, that's kind of like a no shit Sherlock. They should be in here, a nomination.
Yeah.
This is
I agree.
Long overdue.
I absolutely agree with that. I really have my fingers crossed for them that this is their year, because they're one of many that are long overdue for any kind of recognition of this level. So I certainly hope that the metal gods are certainly smiling upon them, and that those number 2 pencils, Scantron, fill in the blank for, Judas Priest. Black out that box, boys.
Yeah, I mean, I just want them inducted so I can see them perform live. I mean, that's
they still have it. They still have it. That's for sure.
So I'm sure they would do a great little mini set at the induction thing. So I hopefully they get in so
Yeah,
people can see how. I mean, my God, that guy can still sing like a maniac. I was blown
I
away
know.
seeing them. I mean, because you see lots of bands that we love, yeah, that grew up with, and I still love them, but they can't hit all those notes. I mean, I go see the Cult and Ian Asbury. His
Yeah,
voice is coursing with age. He can't do all those old notes. Or you listen to Danzig, and he can't hit. It's just age.
yeah,
I think one reason that Robert Plant won't reunite Led Zeppelin is because he can't hit those notes anymore.
yeah. He can't do that one. Yeah,
Rob
but
Half Rob Halford can hit
Rob Halford
all the
and
notes.
and and, and Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, which goes in the long overdue category,
Mm-hmm.
um, for at least for me. Those guys still perform at such a high level to where you just wonder, God, am I even going to even remotely have am I going to have that energy?
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to remotely function as well as these guys do? I mean, they're of course senior to both of us, but gosh, I mean, it's really mind blowing how well these guys are still just knocking it out every single time.
Yeah, like I remember seeing them, and I saw behind the set that he was getting kind of helped on stage. So someone was kind of helping him get on stage. Like he's having a little trouble getting up there, but then he gets up there, and he's like back in his like 30s or 20s,
Mm-hmm.
just belting it, changing like
Yep.
jackets every other song. He must have worn like 20 different jackets over the evening, but. But I mean, he's a showman. You don't have a lot of showmen anymore
Yeah.
in rock,
Yeah.
and so yeah. So those guys, long overdue, definitely. And we're kind of showing our hand here on them early, but it's Judas Priest, so come on, we
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
gotta be glad about that. Now, next up, we have a kind of another abrupt turn. This is a very interesting choice for an induction, and that's Kraftwerk. Um, Kraftwerk were German electronic pioneers. They helped inspire hip hop. They helped inspire a lot of disco stuff. They helped inspire new wave. They helped inspire synth pop. They helped inspire industrial. They helped inspire
Mm-hmm.
so many things that even though they might not be an obvious choice, you can see why they were chosen. Um,
Yeah.
they, very inventive. I mean, the fact that a bunch of four little computer nerds from Germany would like influence hip hop with African Bombata stuff like that's really quite remarkable. Um,
Yeah.
so I think they were a strange choice, but I think it's cool they're getting on the ballot.
I think on this round, this may be the second or third time that they've been on, and I have been trying to champion them, writing letters to my representatives and senators to make sure that Kraftwerk got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the one thing that they don't have are a lot of those record sales, but their influence is out the window. I mean, it's all over the place. It's transgenerational. It's across many different. I mean, just like you said, between hip hop, um, synth pop, electronic, alternative. There's so many different genres and subgenres that they have put a little thumbprint on.
even
That
EDM, even I mean,
yeah, I mean, anybody that stands behind a keyboard and decides that, hey, this is something that I would like to do and perform, think Kraftwerk,
yeah,
because they're really the the progenitors of sequencing and drum machines and you know who knows where Brian Eno would be without somebody like Kraftwerk,
yeah,
or who knows where Depeche Mode be, or um, later on, Nine Inch Nails without Kraftwerk. So they hit a lot of buttons for me, and I got to see him back 2 or 3 years ago, and I remember I had a friend of mine who said, "But what if they were just standing behind the keyboards and were performing?" I said, "I don't care. I just don't care." The guys that were part of Kraftwerk were in there putting on an entire show for me, and I saw them perform enough for me to go, you know what? Check that one off the list. I'm forever sold on those guys, forever.
Yeah, when they came through Austin, and I was broke at the time, and we couldn't go, and it killed me because I really wanted to go so bad, and I don't think they're ever gonna turn through Texas again because they came through like twice, and like both times I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But if they come back again, pretty please, man, get press passes this time, and actually can go for free. So yeah, maybe not the most obvious choice, but definitely, definitely earn their keep on that one. And I guess speaking of kind of proto stuff, next we've got our proto punk band. We got the MC5. Came out of the Detroit scene along with bands like the Stooges and Ted Nugent and who else am I thinking of from Detroit?
Before Ted Nugent turned into an ass.
yeah, before he became an asshole. Didn't Alice Cooper come from Detroit, or am I just making that up?
No, you're right. Alice Cooper did.
Yeah, I mean Detroit was
Cooper did.
Very.
Detroit was a happening scene. Yeah, I mean, in the late '60s and early '70s, it wasn't just all. It wasn't all just hit city.
Yeah.
The R&B side of it. It did kind of turn into, for a little bit there, a nice little culvert of some pretty badass rock and roll,
even
garage and just stuff to scare your parents.
Yeah, I mean they really were kind of the precursors to punk and metal out of there. But the MC5 were really weird. I mean, they're a weird band because they were like kind of associated with the White Panther Party, very political. Definitely big.
They were left of left.
yeah, definitely a big influence on bands like Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that. And they're actually touring right now. I think it's that the remaining members are touring with like Billy Gould of Faith No More playing bass, and I forget, even back in like the mid 2000s, they did a show with Ian Astbury singing "Kick Out the Jams." So they've definitely they got their disciples for sure. I'm kind of, the one thing about MC5 though is that they really don't have. I mean, you think about MC5, you think about one song, "Kick Out the Jams." And beyond that, I mean, maybe Rambling Rose, but I don't have a whole. I mean, I have a great affinity for the Stooges. The MC5, while I appreciate them, I never really have been that massive of a fan. It's been more kind of like I get that they're influential, but their music doesn't necessarily kick my ass that much. I don't know what your thoughts on the MC5 are, but for culturally, I get why they're included for sure.
Yeah, I think MC5 is. I think they're worthy of the nomination for sure, and I think really, even without any kind of a lot of big money machine behind them or the sales or anything like that, but I do just go back to Kick Out the Jams. If you just think about how many people have just gone back to that song. I mean, just even that one song, you're influencing an entire generation after generation. I love the Stooges, and there's a lot of Stooges records that are solid. Funhouse, of course, and self-titled. For Stooges. But MC5 just had to put out one song to make people go, well, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Kick out the jams, motherfucker, And you know, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I was in a band or two that didn't play Kick Out the Jams. And, you know, everybody learned it at some point, you know, just because it was one of those fist pumping, just it got everybody in and up on their feet.
Yeah, they were kind of one of those secondhand bands, you know. Like I remember the first time I heard that song wasn't by them; it was the version with Henry Rollins and Bad Brains off the Pump Up the Volume soundtrack.
Volume, yeah.
Was when I first heard that song. I was like, "This is a cool song," and then I realized later that there was. It's so much fun doing that kind of backwards detective work when you trace a song back to its original, kind of like Dead Souls off the Crow soundtrack with, you know, from Nine Inch Nails to Joy Division. I just love kind of learning where it comes from. So yeah, MC5, I get why they're there. They weren't my favorite of those bands, but you know, they definitely had their little piece in history there. Up next, we've got another Better Late Than Never entry, and that is Motorhead. It saddens me as takes us on for Motorhead to get inducted because half the band is dead. And, you know, so there's really no one to accept the thing that's going to have like a, you know, it's kind of insulting that they're not there. And even that, not that they're not there, but that two of the guys, Filthy Animal, and I forget who the other dude was, they weren't even going to be like allowed to be inducted in. You know, seems very petty since they were, you know, part of so many of the classic Motorhead stuff. But you know, Lemmy.
I'm trying to think who's Fats Eddie Clark's dead.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, Fats Eddie Clark, and then Filthy Animal. Is it Taylor? Is that?
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, those guys were very instrumental, and they were not going to include them for some reason. I think they were going to change that, but I thought that was really, really tone deaf and stupid. But you know, I mean, Motorhead, none of those weird bands where they didn't have hardly any hits. They're kind of just known for that one song. But if you're a diehard fan, you know, there's a lot more there than Ace of Spades. But you know, to the layman, Ace of Spades is it. But even if they're only known for one song, Ace of Spades is a goddamn great rock song.
I mean, yeah, that's certainly a hallmark tune for just the entire metal culture or hard rock or whatever you want to call it at this point. What I think sad is, you know, we're coming up that Lemmy's been dead for almost 4 years.
Ugh.
At this point. Yeah. And I think this is the first time that they have been nominated on this list.
It's crazy.
The first time. And so, yeah, they don't have the sales or anything like that, but their influence is beyond measure. I mean, they were part of that new wave of British heavy metal that was going on back in the 80s, early 80s. And yeah, they had a few nominations for, you know, maybe, gosh, did they even have some Grammy nominations? I bet they did. They did have at least a couple. I mean, because that's always a pisser of an award anyway for the Grammys.
Yeah.
I digress. But anyway, all I can say is they better get in.
Yeah,
they better be a first ballot.
No Motorhead, no Metallica, no Motorhead, probably no Guns N' Roses, no Motorhead. You know, I mean, Motorhead were really one of those bands that helped kind of bridge the gap between punk and metal. That you know, really helped bands that, you know, were combined those, you know, like the thrash bands and things like that, or even bands like the Cult, you know, stuff like that. That they kind of helped make that acceptable to blend those genres. You know.
Yeah.
His bass playing was insane. You know, I mean, and there are plenty of great songs. You got Orgasmatron, Killed by Death, you know, Eat the Rich. Mm-hmm. There's so many.
Eat the Rich, yeah. Overkill, Bomber.
So many good ones. So yeah, better late than never. But yeah, that's another one that long overdue and would make a nice doubleheader with Judas Priest, and they both got inducted. That would be kind of cool, just
That would
because
be nice.
because they're kind of in the same bracket, you know.
Yeah.
And next is another band that I'm very excited about, Nine Inch Nails. This is their second time to be listed as a nominee. I'm hoping this is the time that's going to take them over the finish line. You know, I mean, Nine Inch Nails are one of those weird bands. Of course, it's really is just Trent Reznor and friends. But you know, I mean,
yeah,
he has had one of the most fascinating career arcs of any musician I've ever, you know, to go from industrial to, you know, arena rock, you know, to instrumentals to film composing, which he's doing so great right now. I was just listening to. I've been watching Watchmen, and his soundtrack for that's incredible, really good.
Yes.
Um,
Which I think I'm catching up on that one. By the way.
Yeah, we may need to do a Watchmen podcast at some point, because there's a lot to unpack there.
There's a bunch to unpack.
Yeah, I won't even get distracted.
And I heard that he was releasing Watchmen as a 3-part soundtrack. I don't know if that's true. But
it is true, and they just released the first one. The first one was released yesterday. It's on Spotify.
Oh my gosh!
It's on Spotify now, and they got it on vinyl.
Okay.
But it's really good. I mean, if you like what he did for Social Network or Girl the Dragon Tattoo or Gone Girl, I mean, it's up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, also the fact that he's doing the soundtrack for the next Pixar movie is crazy. I mean, this guy is just. I have oodles of respect. We've talked about this before when we were talking about him in our last episode about Downward Spiral. But you know, I mean, and it's interesting. You were talking about how no Kraftwerk, no Nine Inch Nails, and I read an article with him actually just yesterday at Rolling Stone talking about the nominations and saying that, you know, for him, he knows he shouldn't be in before Depeche Mode or Kraftwerk or Todd Rundgren, but he said, he goes, I'm still writing my name on the ballot anyways.
Todd Rundgren, really?
yeah, he was, but then he finished it with, even though I say that I'm still writing my name on the ballot anyways. but
I don't blame him.
But he definitely he definitely understands his influences, and of course he gave a great induction last year for The Cure.
Yeah, that was a good one.
A really solid induction, and he kind of changed his tune because he was very kind of iffy in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and now I think he thinks it would be cool to get in there just because it'd be fun. Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on Nine Inch Nails getting nominated?
Well, I'm okay with them being nominated. I agree with him that I still need a couple other things to fall in place. He'll be in. There's no doubt. I mean, he has so much going for him, and not even really having to do with what his early input was, but gosh, what he's been doing now, it's just amazing that he actually went from such a head case, you know, back in the days of Pretty Hate Machine and Downward Spiral and The Fragile, and you look at where he is now, and he's all toned, and he's got a vision, and he is, gosh, Trent Reznor is probably one of the most fascinating artists going on in music today. I think, just because of where he is all over the spectrum. He can do a soundtrack for your movie. He can put out, I mean, Hesitation Marks was a fantastic record, if you want to talk about more recent.
Really was.
Not to mention, if you go all the way, you know, if you want to go all the way back to his root for Pretty Hate Machine, and what a fantastic record that was, done on his little, you know, $2 budget at the time, and what he was able to really put together, and gosh, I mean, I want him in. I'm with him though, but I still want him in. If he gets in this year, I wouldn't be surprised. He's one of those, just the whole Trent Reznor and Friends, Nine Inch Nails, whatever it is you want to call it, I think he's almost a lock.
Yeah, and another factor, of course, to take into is his production. I mean, he not only writes his stuff and performs it, he also records it and produces it, and his production is crazy. I mean, people might forget that he produced the Marilyn Manson's, his first 2 albums. I mean, he probably is, without his production, then they may never even gotten off the ground. I mean, he was hugely influential in their success, and he's, I'm still so pissed off that he had worked with Ian Astbury on a solo project for Ian Astbury, and it never got released, and it kills me because I'm dying to hear what they came up with.
Wonder what that sounded like.
Because I bet it was amazing, and I wish they would just put it out there, because the idea of those. He said that Ian's one of his favorite singers, so I'm really bummed out about that. But that's a tangent there. But yeah, Nine Inch Nails, I got no problem with it.
Yeah, me neither. I don't either. And once again, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it in. If Nine Inch Nails is in this year, especially
given that he inducted The Cure last year, so he's kind of got a little in there, as far as like inside the under the veil, basically.
Well, and I think he's liked by a lot of industry folks because of his risk-taking ability, So they'll take a risk on him.
Yeah. And then we switch gears to the Notorious B.I.G. Next entry into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Notorious B.I.G. is one of those interesting cases where very short output, because he obviously was taken early in life because of a murder that still has not been solved, which is just...
That's weird.
Which is so... I mean, people talk about people talk about Jeffrey Epstein. This is like just as weird of a thing of like, come on, something is not right.
Come on, somebody's got to know. I mean, somebody.
Between this and Tupac, but I mean, I never was a big gangster rap guy. It was not really my hip hop that I liked, but I mean, if you put on Hypnotize, I'll crank that shit up because that's a great, that's a great song, man. That bass line is just, it's killer.
Well, and I don't know, did I throw Ready to Die in on our 94 talk? I don't think I did. But I was really looking at it because I was like, man, that was really a good record. I mean, Big Papa was a pretty sweet little tune, but Juicy, which was I think that was like a huge hit for him on Ready to Die, Ready to Die. Man, I like Notorious B.I.G. And I'm not really the gangster rap guy either, but I just thought, gosh, really, I think it has to do a lot with the production.
Yeah, Sean Combs,
Puff Daddy, Puff Daddy. So, but he did have a really good. He had really good lyricism. He's not going to make it. I mean, that's really a short output, like you said. People like him, though, and he sold a ton of records. I'm not saying that he's in, because I don't think he is, but at some point, they're going to put him in. I think.
Yeah.
I think he will at some point, but I don't think this is the year for him. But Ready to Die, I thought it was a good record, and I think I probably went with Illmatic over Ready to Die because I think that was a stronger album on our 94 talk. But Ready to Die was a pretty sweet little record for what was happening with hip hop, gangster rap, whatever you want to call it, back at that point. So, but lots of records sold.
Yeah.
He's dead.
He's got that
going. Yep, he's got that going for him.
Yep. I think the next person on the list is the biggest head scratcher for me, and that's Rufus featuring Shaka Khan.
Yeah.
I only know one Shaka Khan song, really, which is the one that Prince wrote for "Feel for You."
Right.
I know nothing of what she did with Rufus. I didn't even know Rufus was a band. I thought it was always just Shaka
Right.
Khan. So I'm really kind of stumped on this one. I don't get it because, I mean, she's a great singer and all that, but I mean, she has not. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna leave that up to you because I have no clue why this was group was included because I guess I'm ignorant on what they their output is.
So the one that you're familiar with was whenever Shaka Khan left the band, I believe. I'm fairly certain of that. I remember picking up like a best of Rufus with Shaka Khan, but let's see, I'm trying to remember what was on that. Tell me something good. Yeah, I mean, I'm drawing kind of a blank. There, there's that '70s R&B stuff that is pretty cool. You know, it'll get picked up in a Tarantino movie sooner or later, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You know, and I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know much outside of really just Shaka Khan herself, you know. But when was I Feel for You? That was like the '80s, like '85 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
'83, something in there. And so I thought Rufus had split up at that point, or at least she was gone from the band. So there was at some point where the Shaka Khan that we knew from the '80s was completely just Shaka Khan. She went solo. She didn't even have Rufus as the band. But I'll be honest, I'm not really familiar. I threw down the greatest hits record every once in a while just to be sort of familiar, but I don't remember much out of it. It's been a long time, 15, 20 years, probably
Yeah,
20.
it just sounds like somebody on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame board was really, really into Rufus, and they finally got their way because it's just a strange choice. Just because, yeah, at least to me, maybe if I
I'm not
was,
sure of where, like, did Rufus influence did they influence somebody that I'm not familiar with? Did they influence Prince? Or, I mean, like, who else? The
yeah,
Jackson Five, the Jacksons at that point. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where they fall in the line of, Isley Brothers, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire, Sly and the Family Stone, Rufus. I mean, were they in that? Were they in that group? I really don't know.
yeah. So that's a head scratcher for me.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the next person on our list is another very interesting choice, although I get this a little more, and that's Todd Rundgren.
Yeah.
Um, Todd Rundgren is kind of like Trent Reznor, just in the fact that not only did he write a lot of interesting stuff, but he was also a big producer, produced bands like Psychedelic Furs and Cheap Trick. Um, you know, he had a long but he also wrote really like annoying songs like "I Want to Bang on the Drum All Day,"
Yes.
and a really weird song called "We've Got to Get You a Woman," which is real. If you haven't heard it, it's real strange. It's it's all over the place, and I think that the end lines, "We've got to get you a woman. It's the last thing forever do, and when we're done, we have to find one for me too." Um, just just Todd Rundgren is weird, you know. Um, he was
Yeah. Yeah.
but he was in that band, the Nas,
Certainly.
I think they were called.
Yeah.
But he kind of mixed, some jazzy stuff with some rock. But he's one of those guys that I'm more familiar with him as a producer than I am as a musician. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on Todd?
Todd is certainly. I mean, he's a beast of a songwriter. I mean, all you have to do is take a look at his discography, and I mean, aside from his solo run, he had just a handful of Nas records, but he had that Todd Rundgren Utopia project that somewhere went it almost like coincided with his normal solo record output, but I don't know if they were solo records. At least the Utopia project that he had. But yeah, he's a beast of a songwriter, and yeah, that Bang on the Drum All Day, I could just do fucking without that one. The Nav stuff was pretty cool that I recall. It kind of was in that weirdo psych, you know. I think I remember it being on a couple of my Nuggets sets. I don't know if you're familiar with the Nuggets
Oh yeah, yeah,
series, but
great garage rock stuff.
so yeah, the garage rocks that went, garage and psychedelic and just weirdo shit from the '60s and early '70s or what have you. But I guess he's more on here for some of his production. Hey, didn't he do that Cars thing for a little bit?
Yeah, he was the singer for the new Cars. That's right, he was. Um, I'm actually looking over his production stuff, and oh my god, I didn't realize it. He produced the New York Dolls debut album.
Holy shit! Did he really?
He produced "We're an American Band" by Grand Funk Railroad, another band from Detroit.
Wow.
Another band from Detroit.
Hey, look at that.
He produced "Bat Out of Hell" by Meatloaf.
Did he really?
Remote Control by The Tubes. Forever Now, Psychedelic Furs. Next Position, Please, Cheap Trick. And maybe most interesting, Skylarking from XTC. So
there you go.
He's I mean, that alone is pretty amazing. So yeah, I get why he's being included. So
yeah, okay.
Might not be someone I would necessarily vote for just because he's a little esoteric, but I mean, yeah, it's not he deserves it. He deserves a nod for sure.
Absolutely.
And now we're going into a category again of a band that I really, really love, and I want to get in just for my own personal taste. And,
right.
And that's Soundgarden. There's a lot of reasons Soundgarden. I think this is earned. It's because the grunge movement in rock was a huge, huge scene, even though it didn't last very long. It defined the '90s. And I'm firmly convinced, without a shadow of a doubt, that there was no Soundgarden, there would be no Nirvana. Because Soundgarden got signed. They were their first grunge band signed to a major label, A&M.
Yeah.
They released Louder Than Love, which is an amazing album, in 1990, I believe. Or 89 or 90. 1989, because we discussed 89. We discussed that in our best of 89 list, I now remember. Yep. It didn't sell very well, but it kind of was like the Trojan horse. It kind of got the ball rolling, so that by the time Nirvana clicked open, it kind of was like a nice cycle. Soundgarden helped start the feeding frenzy of labels on, A&R people looking for Seattle bands, and Nirvana get big, and by Nirvana getting big, it helped Soundgarden get big. So it was kind of a nice reciprocal thing. By the time Bad Motorfinger came out, they were rock stars. And of course, one of the greatest voices of a generation, another guy we lost too soon. Chris Cornell was a massive talent. And, Soundgarden didn't have a lot of albums, but they made a huge splash for the time that they were around and their output.
Yeah, they have a lot of stuff going for them. Tremendous amount of popularity, for sure. they sold a ton of records. They have Chris Cornell that's recently passed away, but and their songwriting was really tight. I mean, it was really, really good. You know, by the time that they had figured out Bad Motorfinger. I mean, and not to take any away from, you know, Louder Than Love, but by the time that they reached Bad Motorfinger, I mean, those guys were next level, and there's no reason why. I have a hard time thinking that they're not going to make it this year.
Yeah, especially given.
I have a hard time thinking about that. You know.
And once again, the tragic angle can't be ignored.
Yeah, exactly. And I hate to play that card. If that wasn't the case, then I think they may have another year or so, another nod on the ballot before they made it in. But I think they get in this year.
Yeah, I mean the legacy is there, the impact is there, and
yeah.
And I think one thing that always made Soundgarden fun for me was they had that little element of weirdness that it kind of was weird they got as big as popular as they were because they threw those little weird time signatures, strange chords, interesting chord progressions. So I think just based on their creativity, the fact that they could be so popular makes them very weird because they were not a by the numbers rock band. They were not 4 on the floor, 3 chords in the truth. They were 6/4 time, crazy, weird stuff, but still very accessible, very catchy, very just really great songwriters and great musicians. So yeah, I have no problem with Soundgarden getting in there. And even if they'll get in this time, they'll get in probably the next time around. And it's
if they don't get in this year, then I would put them certainly down for next year.
And if Nirvana can be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, then Soundgarden's got to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Pearl Jam. If those two bands are in, Soundgarden needs to be in.
Absolutely.
And Alice in Chains eventually.
Yeah.
Now the next band on the list or artist is one I'm actually kind of shocked wasn't already in there. I didn't realize that they weren't, and that's T-Rex. T-Rex were I know they weren't big in America except for Bang a Gong, Get It On. They were kind of a British export that never got
Power Station.
yeah. That's a great cover, by the way. I love that cover.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm just real powerful, and that's one of those things that you hear them first and you trace your way back, just like Henry Rollins and MC5. But I think T-Rex were one of those bands that you don't really discover until you get further, kind of along in your musical collection. But then once you discover them, you're like, oh my God, this is the best kept secret in rock because Mark Bolan was a fucking genius. That guy, his guitar riffs are absolutely so simple, so uncomplicated, but so beautiful. I mean, you've got Jeepster, you've got Bang a Gong, you've got Metal Guru, you've got 20th Century Boy, which is probably the best guitar riff, one of the best guitar riffs of all time. Been covered so many times. And you get his very interesting voice, his really funny, quirky lyrics, which are so humorous and egotistical and just wonderful. A big pal of Bowie's from that same scene. It's just one of those bands that every cool band will name check T-Rex because they know that they were just, they're badasses. Mark Bolan was a badass. He was another guy taken away far too soon. He died of a car accident when he was only 30 something, or maybe in his late 20s. Yeah. He was very young. But I mean, my God, talk about some great. I mean, the riffs from Buick McCain, 20th Century Boy alone, or that's enough to get for me to qualify to be in this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because it's killer. I mean, just great rock. So I'm shocked they weren't already in there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're as enthusiastic as I am, because I on the other hand was like, I can't believe that they're not in. They're certainly one of those pinnacle acts that had gone, had been floating around and influencing the people who would influence even more people,
Mm-hmm.
more artists down the line. But I mean, come on. I mean, just by Electric Warrior, if I'm going to pick anything,
Oh
if
yeah.
I just put down Electric Warrior and say this is the reason why they should be in, yeah. I mean that for me does it right there. That's a fucking great record. Still holds up, and yeah, and I I really am rooting them on to get in this year, but this this fickle group is probably gonna let it sit for a little while. That's what I'm afraid of, but
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, you can just kind of track T Rex's influence by all the bands that covered him. I mean, the Power Station we mentioned, but Susie and the
Yeah,
Banshees,
right.
Guns N' Roses, Danzig. I mean,
Wow.
every band of every stripe you could think of. Placebo. Um,
Yeah,
who else? I mean, there's so many uh,
yeah.
that have covered their stuff because you know it's
Completely influence the influencers,
yeah. I mean, so yeah,
if not influence them being the direct influence, but you know that's where I am with them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I have like Electric Warrior on vinyl. My daughter loves to dance to it. My wife's a big T Rex person, so we play T Rex a lot.
Nice,
So yeah,
right?
I'm excited about that. Um, and we only got one band left on the list, and
Yep.
Thin Lizzy. Uh, another band with a tragic backstory due to Phil Lynott, the singer and bass player, dying awfully young. Uh, Thin Lizzy are kind of a weird group. I don't know a lot by them, but I mean, you've got songs like "Boys Are Back in Town," of course, and you've got like "Jailbreak," and
Yeah.
Whiskey in a Jar." I mean, and not really a band I gravitate towards is what I want to listen to, but they definitely, you got to give it up for Thin Lizzy. They were very influential and unique.
Yeah, I like Thin Lizzy, and I've shocked a handful of people by not liking them as much as they as they do, I suppose. Um, the guy has a statue, Phil Lynott, or is it Lynott or Lynott? Lynott?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Somebody will, I'm sure, correct me sooner or later. But they have a statue of him in in the town where he grew up, so they thought extremely highly of him. And I like Thin Lizzy. I don't hold them as a higher regard. Yeah, I'm sure the guys in U2 like them since they're Irish, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all cool. But I don't own anything by them. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah, same way. But it's another band that got covered by like Metallica, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there's a lot of influence that they have. I mean, just because they're just a good hard rock band. But I just never invested a whole lot into them. So maybe it's a case that I am missing out, and I'll get that email, or somebody will tweet me or something like that on Twitter, and I'll get a nice recommendation and
yeah,
not hate mail.
there you go.
It
so
could go either way.
so what? How many bands get nominated? How many bands get inducted each year? What's the total?
So from this initial list, they then there's fan voting, which is going on right now.
Well, I got to do that.
Um,
I need to do that.
and then but there's also voting on back in their little secret alcove
Mm-hmm.
where they gather, and I don't know. They wait till the white smoke comes out. I don't know. They all pick their their nominations, the final nominations to go in, or really it's the 2020 class. And but then they also take into consideration what the fans voted on. I mean, back a couple of years ago, I think they let the fans vote in at least one. That's how Rush got in.
Thank God.
Yeah, so talk about long overdue. But I mean, if it wasn't for fans, then I'm not sure that Rush would have ever gotten in. You know. Anyway, so from here, then it's 5 acts that make it on past this from after this round.
All right.
So five acts out of that list that make it to the class of 2020.
All right. So this is gonna be the hard part for us, is whittling this down to just 5 acts. I'm gonna let you go first, and then I'll do the hard part first, and then I will follow your lead. So what are the five bands you want in the Hall of Fame this year?
These are the ones that I are really I'm rooting for the class of 2020. T-Rex. MC5, Motorhead, Kraftwerk, and Judas Priest.
Yeah,
I have a lot of artists that are just really about the influence, so that I can comfortably put in my next wave. I was so happy last year whenever they put Roxy Music in, because of what the influence that they had.
Yeah,
on,
for sure.
You know, on just tons of artists. So I'm sticking to my guns with pick the influencers, the ones that are closer to my heart, and then I can let the other ones fall where they may.
Yeah, this is hard because I don't really differ in my opinion from your list, actually. I mean, I think all those are, T-Rex for sure.
Right.
Judas Priest for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Motorhead for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to argue with Kraftwerk either. The only one I might have to switch out is MC5, and it's just because but that's tough too, because they I mean, if
there are, well, my correct answers are for me. I told everybody on my Facebook that these are your correct answers, or these are the correct answers.
Mm-hmm.
There's of course a little, like I did have one friend of mine who said, I was going to like your post until I saw that you didn't nominate Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I decided not to. Okay, all right.
Everybody's got their favorites.
So there you go. They have their group, their fans, for sure.
Yeah,
I need to go back and.
I mean, I get it about the MC5, but it's
I know.
It's hard because of just how it's been kind of a haphazard way of getting these bands in. Like I see Nirvana, I think Nirvana, I think Soundgarden. If I had to pick my 5 favorites, it would be Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, Soundgarden, T-Rex, and Judas Priest. If I just went by favorites, but if I went your way, the only thing I might switch out is MC5 with Depeche Mode, just because of Depeche Mode's influence as well. But it's a tough one. So I definitely think that your list is totally fair and it makes total sense. And you can set up a lot of these guys for being inducted the next time around.
Yeah.
I just wish you could nominate 10 because that could get all the ones I want to get in there. But
But at the same time, like these classes never follow my rules, and that's which that's fine. I mean, I have my own set of criteria and that's why I started out with where are you on that scale? Because Metallica's in there. Well, Judas Priest influenced Metallica. Motorhead influenced Metallica,
mm-hmm.
but Metallica's already in there.
Yeah.
So,
So it's a very back asswards.
Yeah, exactly. This these nomination processes are sometimes a little bit more to it feels more payola to me.
I think the only the only two bands that on this list that got nominated this year that I would be kind of annoyed with would be Dave Matthews Band and Rufus, just because I don't know enough about Rufus and Dave Matthews. I just can't stand. So, but right. all the other rest I couldn't necessarily argue with because they've all got their bona fides.
Yeah,
and while in my mind, pop music and hip hop really doesn't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I get that it's inclusive, and so I'm not going to throw a fit if they get in there. I get why they would be in there, but all in all, it's a pretty solid list. That's besides that, I can't really, each year I think they get a little bit better at getting more, and of course I like it the more further we go, so we got to get into more bands and from our era, which is always fun.
Right.
I mean, The Cure getting in was awesome. I was really pleased with that. So.
Oh yeah, I was too. I thought that was a tremendous signal that okay, yes, we get it. We see you. We hear you. Here's one. We'll take care of the rest of you later.
Yeah.
So the ones that I think we're going to make it this year, I think the Depeche Mode's going to make it. I think Whitney Houston is going to make it. I think Judas Priest is going to make it. I think Soundgarden is going to make it, and I think Nine Inch Nails are going to make it. Those are the 5 that I think that are going to make it in this year.
Yeah, I think my predictions would be Whitney Houston, Motorhead, Judas Priest, and probably Soundgarden and Nine Inch Nails. That would be my But really, T-Rex needs to get in there. God damn it, T-Rex needs to be in there.
I know.
That's of all the bands on that list, that's the one that got me the most excited because all the bands.
I know
every rock band on this list owes a little bit to T-Rex.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Even Judas Priest, all those bands. Yep. T-Rex was big. T-Rex was a big influence on metal. They really were, because a lot of metal bands cover them.
T-Rex and Priest were going on at the same time back in the early 70s. And so there was, of course, I don't think Priest would put out records until maybe about 73 or 74. Maybe I should double check that before I start talking. But at the same time, there's still a little bit of there's competition going on. 74, it was Rock and Roll. But yeah, so there's going to be some sort of influence, and by no means was Judas Priest the band that they are now back then.
No, yeah, they were very. I mean, they were covering Joan Baez, for God's sake. So
yeah, I mean, they were a little hippie.
Yeah,
there's great old footage where it has Rob Halford in one of those like kimono looking things,
with big billowing sleeves.
70s, yeah. Funny. Good stuff, though.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about our picks, and I definitely can't wait to see the actual induction ceremony. It should be a fun one. That's always the best part of this thing, is just seeing the bands play. That's what you care about. The speeches are one thing, the little presentations are one thing, but the band's playing, that's what it's all about. So that will be That would be cool. Well, thanks again, Chris, for chiming in.
You betcha.
Always fun. We will obviously keep track of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and maybe we'll give our 2 cents after the actual airing of the ceremony comes on, if we're so inclined. So stay tuned for that, possibly. And we'll be back sometime in the near future with another topic when we decide on something that we think is worth diving into. The year's coming to a close, so we'll see what we can get in before then. But yeah, definitely more stuff on the horizon, and we're probably gonna start doing a lot more single albums, just to kind of dive in a little bit deeper and to be more concise. And we think that could be kind of a fun thing. So stay tuned for that as well.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, thanks.
All right,
buddy.
Well, thanks again. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. We'll talk to you later.